So what would you say if somebody asks you how to be mindful, how to sustain in mindfulness, how to carry on being mindful? Not like you must be mindful, then you're mindful when you remember to be mindful, but then you lapse, you forget. So how to sustain mindfulness?
Well, if you know what mindfulness is, then you can sustain it.
Yeah, so already, if you have a right direction, so what would then, so how would you sustain it? How would you know what it is in order to sustain it?
Well, you need to know what so you have to be mindful of what? Mindful of, let's say, of the body.
Okay, so you need something to be mindful of.
Yeah.
So what would be difference between being mindful of the body and being mindful of this, I don't know, roof above my head? Being mindful of the body and being mindful of my hands. What's the difference?
The attention, I guess. The thing that you're placing it.
Yeah, how specific or how general it is.
Yes, but the roof is not the roof is
But
not...
I can be mindful of the roof if I'm worried that something will fall on the roof and destroy it.
Yeah.
So I am very mindful of what's happening to the roof.
Yeah.
But that's the difference, is like whether it's a specific thing or whether you are something that's more like fundamental to your experience, such as your body, your feeling, the whole...
So I could be mindful, if I'm doing work here, and this roof might fall down.
Yeah.
Then I'm mindful of that roof,
Exactly.
that context, that whatever I'm doing here is subject to
because you're under
the roof falling.
But why is then being mindful of your body better than being mindful of the roof? Why would that be better?
Because there's a different goal, I suppose.
Well, because it already includes mindfulness of the roof. See, if you're under the roof, they might fall. If you're mindful of your body, you're already mindful of the danger of it being crushed by the roof or anything other than the roof. But if you're mindful of the roof, anything else that's higher than that, you won't be mindful of. So that's at least the mindfulness, the points for recollection, points for mindfulness are the reference points. But it matters what reference point. So not like, I'm mindful of pleasure that I'm chasing. Yeah, you're mindful of feeling, but that's not mindfulness of feeling. You'll be mindful of feeling in the general sense that includes every other particular feeling you might be going through. So mindful of the nature that you're subjected to feeling. Oh yeah, mindful of the body is there, regardless of whether it's at risk of this or something else. Because that reveals then the whole scope of what that body is subjected to, not just the particular danger of the roof and the non-danger if you step outside of the possibly imminently falling roof.
So whatever you're doing, you're mindful of that context of body.
Yeah, we always kind of end up revolving around the context, because you are already your body already provides you the basis for the context you're in.
So just not forgetting,
Yeah, so how would you then not forget? How do you sustain? Because you would still lapse. So we want to basically say why you lapse and how not to lapse from the context that is there. So when you lapse from your mindfulness, you haven't lapsed from the body that's subjected to all these things. So you can't change the body and what's subjected to. So then it's only because of stuff you do that you get to lapse from what's obvious.
So remembering the context, you're asking how to remember the context.
And then refraining from doing things that basically are contradicting the context, that are countering, that are against it. The context of that, like, this body is subjected to this whole vast scope, domain of things that I cannot even fathom, and you feel that. But then if you ignore it, and roof is the danger, I avoid the roof, thus I am safe. And you ignore the fact that that's only a relative safety. A relative sort of ease. But if you kind of reconnect with the notion, but the body is still there, depends on organs, depends on the elements, so there's no safety there. But that's unpleasant now. So I don't want displeasure, so I'll just selectively kind of pick on and establish my mind upon safety. Relative safety. So that's why you lapse from mindfulness. Because you choose to ignore the context because it's unpleasant at times. Not always, but at times it's unpleasant and you don't want it. So you want to sustain the mindfulness, stop trying to avoid displeasure. Pretty much of any kind. Not torture yourself, but when unpleasant feeling manifests, stop trying to justify it, outrun it, explain it, get rid of it. You have to allow it to endure. And by the way, that's another way you could easily be mindful of it, effortlessly be mindful of the context. Find something deeply concerning. Because the whole life revolves around avoiding concerns, covering them up, dealing with them, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a concern in the back of your mind. But that's obviously a bit edgy, because it can overwhelm you.
So finding a concern.
Yeah.
Something, so I'm concerned of losing something.
Yeah, find that and then work through that.
Something might change.
And you don't need to see, like, when there is a concern present in your experience, the effort is never is on the level of, oh, I need to keep this concern, otherwise I'll forget about it. No, the effort is, I must forget about this. I must outrun it. So if you find a concern, you will be unable to forget about it. Unless you intentionally make this excess effort to cover it up.
So remember what you're concerned.
Yeah, so like basically dig up the concern, or as the Buddha would say, sense of urgency, and that will effortlessly stay there. You don't need effort, because if you just take mindfulness on your own terms, I'm mindful now, you need all this effort to keep that mindfulness going, because it's just going to fade, because it's not really the mindfulness. It's not based on the context you're in, it's the context that you kind of scraped up, thinking that's what the context I'm in.
So
but if you find a concern, you'll never intentionally scrape up the concern and enjoy it to be there.
So what's concerning about the body is...
You don't even need to start specifically about concern of the body, just any concern, any unease that you have. And then, exactly, allow that thought to endure. You are mindful of the body there. You're mindful of the feeling there.
You're mindful of the danger in the body.
Well, it becomes very apparent. Yeah. So, as I said, that the only effort then you would be making would not be effort, I must stay mindful, because you are mindful, because the concern will endure effortlessly. The only effort you will be making, and thus restraining yourself from making it if you want to practice mindfulness, is effort for distracting yourself from that concerned mindfulness. And that's easier. It's clear. Often, like as you said, you can't be mindful because you know what mindfulness is. And now you know exactly what will take you away from this concern, and you choose to not do it. Because then you will lose your mindfulness. So that's little recognition of I am prey to suffering. And you cannot shake it off. Because it's literally, that's your situation. It's unshakable. The only way people can shake it off is cover it up, which means they don't shake it off. They just put a bandage on the wound so they don't, not to treat the wound, but not to see the wound. So just make up so you don't see that the wound still very much there. So it doesn't need to be some great concern that you cannot possibly cope with, but you certainly need to start digging them up, because they are there. Most people's lives revolve around avoiding anxiety and trying to basically prevent it from arising. Yet, if your situation is not already deeply anxious as a human being, you wouldn't be experiencing anxiety to begin with. So it's just a revelation of what your situation already is. And that kind of breeds the whole kind of dependence on sensuality and the whole constant movement, constant activity, constant projects. Because if I stop, I settle back into my situation. And that's already the beginning of mindfulness. So you realize most people lose mindfulness is because deep down they don't want to be mindful. They want to do mindfulness on their own terms, but they don't want to be mindful because that reveals this, the nature of my situation that's subject to change, subject to all these things that are beyond. That's frightening. Frightening from the point of view of my assumed change and control. Not frightening in itself. So if you get used to it, the fear will go away.
So right concern.
Yeah, we actually spoke about it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
There was a whole talk on the right concern.
That was like the prerequisite.
Yeah, that's it. There it is.
Right
yeah.
concern.
I didn't have it in mind when we started, but that's exactly what it is. Yeah, the right concern will result out of it. So right concern, right mindfulness, right concern.
Yeah.
And right mindfulness, as the Buddha said, it's where you can't have too much of it. You can't overdo your situation. You can just be more clearer and clearer about it. And if you're clear about to the extent necessary, you will have uprooted any misconstrued notions and assumptions about the nature of what you're subjected to, the nature of anicca, nature of change, that whole thing. The only reason you carry on these gratuitous assumptions and sense of ownership and my and I am is because you really like, you maintain it through refusing to address the basic characteristics of your situation.
So if I just say be mindful of the body without seeing having no concern over it.
Yeah, it's going to be mechanical. It's going to be
kind
mechanical.
of boring. It might be
novelty. And that's exactly why you won't be able to sustain it. That's exactly why you need more. No. That's not mindfulness of the body. That's mindfulness of what you assume body to be.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like if you do mindfulness rightly, it's not your doing. It's just discerning what's already there. That's exactly why mindfulness results in culmination of knowledge, literally, of understanding.
But you have to see the danger in the body. So you have to
seeing the danger of the body is actually more aligned with mindfulness of the body than you being mindful of the body.
Yeah.
When you do that, I'm mindful of the body now. I'm feeling this chair and whatever.
Because once you grasp the danger,
that's already the body.
You're not going to be. You can have one eye open, so to speak.
You're already alert.
Yeah, you're going to be alert, heedful, so to speak.
So people want to be alert and heedful on their own terms, without feeling the pang of that anxiety and danger. And that's then not alertness, isn't it?
Yeah, alert to what?
So then, no, but I'm alert. This is still alertness. I maintain the view that this is still mindfulness of the body. I just refuse to feel that concern on account of it, because it's unpleasant. So then you realize even your committed practice of mindfulness and alertness is for the purpose of avoiding the actual mindfulness and alertness, because it's unpleasant. And the only reason, by the way, that it stays unpleasant is you keep trying to avoid the unavoidable. If you accept it, it ceases to be unpleasant. It becomes the norm.
So having right concern, you see the danger. So you always, that's the thing, you're always faced with this danger. The elements, remember, the elements are dangerous. The body's dangerous. It's going to kill you, kind of thing. And that can seem like it would be overwhelming, but that's actually the mindfulness. But you think, if I'm constantly under this threat, I'm constantly threatened, that's going to be overwhelming. It's going to send me into madness,
It could, yeah.
Trauma.
Hence, you want to have developed your behavior beforehand and keep it in check. Sila, virtue, sense restraint. See, your madness is not measured. Even when people go mad, you don't go mad by what sort of pressuring you and what type of things are making you like feel this or that. You're mad by what type of action you do on account of what's pressuring you. That's the definition of your madness. Yeah, I had these thoughts, but I don't act out of thoughts. Thus, I'm not a mad person. But I had thoughts and I choose to do these horrible things on account of these thoughts. Oh, now, I'm a mad person. Because look what he done. He's mad. So it doesn't matter how much they pressure you, your behavior is that which makes you mad or not. By the way, even in the suttas, when those monks were contemplating the disgust of the body and death and so on, and then wanted to die, so they convinced that man to kill them, because he'll be getting lots of merit. Everything got a bit skewed. And that man first didn't want to do it. He was concerned, and once he killed the first monk, once he committed and gave in to that action of what was pressuring him, he went mad and then went and started killing the monks that didn't want to be killed. He said, who else wants this nibbana? I'll help him with this knife. And then just start hacking people. But not until he gave in to that. So although they saw, I'll ask him, he might do it. Monks that did ask him saw that he might actually want to do it. So he was kind of giving off that vibe, but he didn't do it before. And he didn't want to do it first until they kind of laid into him and convinced him and praised the virtue of death. That's the parajika, praising virtue of death to others, to make them kill them. And then he did, and then he was like let loose. Then he was just killing everybody. So he went mad after he said yes to these mad actions. But if he was set in...
mad thoughts.
Said yes to mad thoughts, but then he basically chosen to perform mad actions. Like even saying yes to mad thoughts is still not you doing the mad actions. But it's obviously a necessary basis for you then acting out. But if he was developed in virtue, sense restraint, precepts, he would have not be able to do it, because the behavior of not doing it has been basically hammered in and trained sufficiently before. So no amount of pressure would have made him do it. But he obviously wasn't developed in virtue and then exposed to that level of pressure, and then you exploded. And that's exactly that. If you start contemplating Dhamma of any kind, by the way, the Buddha said it's like a kusa grass. If you grasp it wrongly, it's going to cut you open. It's like a snake. If you don't catch it rightly, it will kill you. Literally, the Dhamma will kill you because you will not be ready for it. So mindfulness of the body will kill you unless you have been developed in sila beforehand, as in will make you go mad. Not specifically mindfulness of the body and then some other... No. Mindfulness in itself, because it reveals the nature of human situation affected with ignorance, with the whole burden of danger, the peril, yeah. And the Buddha said that. There are only two outcomes for a person who recognizes that suffering. Noble search, as in, okay, this must be dealt with, or mental derangement. Yeah. No third option there.
If you're threatened constantly by something every day in your face, like you try and threaten a dog or something every day, what's going to happen to the dog?
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's going to try to get away,
yeah,
or it's going to lose its mind.
Or it's going to can't cope with it. And when people think, yeah, but I'm neither. Like, yeah, I think I have anxiety, but see, I don't need to become a monk or practice the Dhamma, and I'm not deranged. Means you are still having lots of cover-up.
Means
you're not really... Well, it's a form of derangement, sure, but means basically, you're not fully admitting the nature of your situation. Because if you do, as the Buddha said, there are only two possible outcomes. I will have to practice the Dhamma and address this, or I'll go mad. There is no third option there. So if you're neither, it's because you haven't really came back to that source. That is your situation. That is going to bite you, but then it will be too late to deal with it. So then if you're worried that you might go mad, that's a legitimate concern on account of practicing the Dhamma committedly, and you address it, not by not practicing the Dhamma, you address it by doubling down on the proper precepts, sense restraint, and strengthening yourself, because that is in your control, always. What you choose to say yes or no to your senses, it's always on you. It's always your responsibility. That's why that was kind of a funny thing, but it's like, even when people go mad and do crazy things on account of that internal pressure of their thoughts, and then like try to put the reason for their actions on their thoughts, like, oh well, I had thoughts, so I couldn't resist it. And then this guy pointed out, like, how come you never do good things on account of those thoughts? Like, oh, these voices told me to get a degree.
Yeah.
Or these voices told me to go and do charity. It's always do bad things. It's like, because that's basically what you keep leaning on. That's where the mind's lean. Mind affected with ignorance, greed, aversion, delusion leans in that direction. So whenever you engage in avoiding responsibilities, because you want to cover up the bad things. So when you say, I did that because of the thoughts, no. You did that because you chose to do these things, but now you cannot accept responsibility for it, so you say it's because of the thoughts. But when you do good things on account of your thoughts, that's always on you. You don't say, oh no, it wasn't me who did the charity, I just had this random impulse, I wasn't in control, I don't know what I did, basically. No. You calculate and you accept it and you do it.
Yeah.
Now that's good, but you want to do it both ways, as in take responsibility and become aware of your situation, which will make sense restraint easier. Then you realize, okay, I can't control these things directly, what thoughts present themselves to me. But I can certainly control how much I'm pressured by them by basically controlling my actions that would make that worse or better. Non-sense restraint or sense restraint. Containing myself. Like if you have no container and you release the pressure, or the container is weak with cracks, it will explode. So Dhamma, practice of Dhamma, is practice of releasing the pressure. And it's not optional, by the way. The pressure will be released sooner or later against your will. So then what you do, you prepare a container that can contain the pressure so it can be released, so you can get the final, basically, culmination of the final product. Pressurized sense-restrained virtue, pressurized Dhamma, product, arahantship, enlightenment.
The diamond.
The diamond, yeah. I didn't want to say that, it's used so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, the diamond.
So right concern, again, seeing the danger, seeing the threat.
That's all revolving around the right concern.
Yeah, that's automatically, you're not going to be forgetting about it.
Exactly.
You're going to get stabbed any moment.
The only reason you forget about things is because you haven't taken them on the right level, or because you intentionally distracted yourself from it. So if you take things on the right level, where the concern is, All you need to do then is abstain from distracting yourself. That's all you need. So you don't really need to do anything to maintain the mindfulness. You just need to kind of negatively, sort of as in abstain from certain actions, and you will be protecting it automatically. So if I want to stay dry, I don't need to keep myself dry. All I need to do is not keep jumping back in the water. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to do that than to keep yourself dry if you're constantly wet.
Don't do anything that covers up
exactly.
the danger.
Don't do anything that will basically cover up, distract you from the obviousness of that danger. And by the way, that's like the chief reason why people do things, to distract themselves from the recent discomfort. That's why you go after sensuality, ownership, craving. That's the craving in a nutshell. So see, by practicing with the right concern, kind of forcing yourself to be rightly mindful, you are fading away your craving. More or less, you are not providing a basis for maintenance of craving. Because what is craving for pleasure other than trying to avoid this discomfort of not enough pleasure? Like, I want this means I don't have it, means that's uncomfortable. I cover up the discomfort by seeking out that which will cover it up, pleasure. What is craving in terms of the discomfort when you want to get rid of it, other than trying to replace that discomfort with something that's less uncomfortable? So again, you're refusing to face the discomfort that's there and seeking out to cover it up. And that's the principle of losing mindfulness. And the reason why people will want to practice mindfulness on their own terms, not on the terms of concern, is because then it's already just playing into that already existing cover-up. Oh, my own terms means I don't really need to rekindle or open up this concern. I can just pretend I'm practicing mindfulness. Like I can pretend I'm applying medicine on top of a wound that I covered up basically with bandages and stuff, and haven't really addressed the bacterial infection. But here I am now putting the cream on top of the bandages. Because if I open the bandages, it will be too unpleasant. Although I know, in order for cream to work, I need to open up the bandages.
So if you're not seeing a threat, you're covering it up.
Yeah. And then even if you spend your life doing the Dhamma, you're not practicing the Dhamma. And that's the difference between you doing or between discerning the concern which doesn't need to be done and just stays there.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
But,
Yeah. Or I'll do it later. Or, well, I don't know how I'm practicing, but I'm sure I am somehow, and I will have to bear the results of it in the future. It's like, yeah, but do you know that that's practice right here, right now? Do you know to what extent your effort is actually effort that's applying to the right things? Or you just refuse to question it?
So how to be mindful is to be able to see the threat of your body.
Yeah, we can say
see
that.
the threat of.
See the situation which is dangerous and which is dukkha.
Yeah.
See that you are prey to suffering regardless of the circumstances. Even if you are living in a palace sheltered by thousands of army.
So it's a knowledge you have.
It's knowledge.
You get to see the knowledge.
Well, mindfulness results in knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's a recognition of your situation. That's what mindfulness is. And that's why you can't have too much of it, as I said. And that's why if you stick to it, knowledge of your situation will have to arise. The characteristic, the obviousness, the nature becomes apparent. Not I have concocted the nature through my theoretical reasoning. No, the nature will become apparent, known, discerned, evident, because you stop covering it up through mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you will stop covering it up if you stop expecting, or if you stop basically feeling entitled internally to avoiding discomfort, to avoiding anxiety. Now, I don't say you need to seek it out like a maniac, but you certainly must not have the attitude of this must be avoided at all costs. Means practice of Dhamma must be avoided at all costs. That's what you're saying. Inadvertently.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're saying.
So being concerned about your feelings.
Yeah, being concerned, for example, about the fact that you're subjected to feeling, good or bad, and that it will have to change. As in, the change is implicit in a good feeling, the change is implicit in a bad feeling. But you not wanting that, you wanting good feeling on your own terms, and you wanting bad feeling on your own terms. As in, wanting to go away, wanting to come here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see that it's already change is implicit, you would stop resisting it. And that's literally the Sotapanna's insight. Change is implicit in this thing that's here.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be.
So coming and going is implicit in that change.
In that pleasure, like being mindful of the pleasure means.
Yeah, being mindful of the pleasure is not necessarily pleasant.
Yeah.
Being mindful of the nature of the pleasure can be very disconcerting.
Yeah, and that's
like,
what it should
for
be,
example, being mindful of the pleasure of sensuality is actually, oh my goodness, it's like being mindful of holding a deadly snake that you're not in control of. But if you forget the deadliness of it, then you just... Or the other one, even better simile, the poisonous drink. So if you're mindful of the poison in this beautifully smelling, tasting consistency of this drink, so poison is undetectable, but you know it's in there. So if you're mindful of the poison of that drink, you'll be careful to not even spill it on your skin, let alone drink it. But if you basically forget that it's poisonous, you'll be chugging it down.
Or, you can't have... So I know where the poison is.
And so enjoy with it.
Let me enjoy the pleasant part of it, because it will make the
that's
poison
you
disappear.
Basically trying to kind of like practicing mindfulness on your own terms, which is not mindfulness, and then trying to claim that no, it's still on the right term. I still am aware of concern. And monks did that in the suttas when they said in terms of sensuality. When basically they thought that you could be mindful of sensual danger and engage with sensuality at the same time. And the Buddha said that's impossible. He said it's impossible to have sensual perceptions of like joyous, delightful, and at the same time be mindful of basically have sensual perceptions, not have sensual perceptions, as in see this is dangerous, and engage with sensuality.
Right.
So if you're engaging with sensuality, means perceptions of sensuality has to be there. Meaning, if you're engaging with sensuality, not seeing the danger of sensuality has to be there. It's mutually exclusive. So if a person claims both, that's a contradiction in terms. Means, they're not seeing where real danger is. So that's what I mean. They take mindfulness on their own terms, and then they take the concern behind the mindfulness on their own terms. So they say, no, it is concern, but it's not because it's on your own terms. As in you took the ownership of it. The concern is exactly that which you cannot own, that you are subjected to, not other way around.
You wouldn't be drinking the poison if you knew
Inconceivable.
It was poisonous.
So if you think you know it's poisonous, yet you're still drinking it, means you just took to think to know what poison is. Because if it were truly that poison that you are thinking of, you wouldn't even touch it. You would, as the Buddha said, the danger would have become apparent. And that would reveal itself to you if you're self-honest. So you have the faith in the Buddha's instruction, yet here you are contradicting that. But if you were honest, you would see that contradiction, and then you would take that as a symptom of, I'm not seeing this deeply enough. It's exactly what I just said a few minutes ago. Like, I'm sure many people would think, but I know what dukkha is, but I don't feel like extreme sense of urgency to practice Dhamma, and I'm neither going mad. Means you don't know what dukkha is. That's what Buddha said. Because if you were to know what dukkha is, you would be full on bent on practicing the Dhamma or losing your mind. You cannot bear that in itself. Without addressing it, you cannot stay with it. With the dukkha in a purest form that needs to be seen and understood. That's what Buddha said literally. All he teaches is suffering and freedom from it. Nothing else. Everything he ever said. Not how to find a way in between, a bit of both. Suffering, which it's fine if you don't want to do it, but it's not fine if you claim you're doing it while you're not doing it.
Because if you did understand what dukkha is, you wouldn't...
It would be, the directions would be automatic. I need to deal with this, and if you're unable to deal with this, or if you try ignoring the fact that you need to deal with this, well, the other direction then is taken of madness. You will not be able to stay on that level. So either dealing with it or going mad, or maintain the cover-up, as in never really admit what's underneath. Because if you do admit what's underneath your cover-up, you cannot forget that. And people who experience anxiety know that.
Just back to the poison drink, you wouldn't be... Your actions reveal that you are drinking because you're concerned about yourself already. So if you knew that this action was going to hurt you even worse, you wouldn't be doing it. So it's a contradiction. You wouldn't say, poison which can
That's
kill
what
me.
it would have meant, like
is
like
okay.
when he would say, like, you know, a man wishing for his welfare, not for his harm, would heed my instruction. As in, even the one who doesn't accept his instruction, if he was self-honest, he would realize that it's for his welfare.
Yeah.
So even the person who engages with sensuality and unwholesome behavior, deep down, it's always rooted in wanting their own welfare
Exactly.
and not their own harm.
Yeah.
That is the universal principle for every human being, enlightened or unenlightened.
Engaging in sensuality because you think it's good for you.
Yeah.
But if you realize that it's,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
both realize that it's bad for you
And engage
and then
with
think
it.
it's good for you at the
Impossible.
same
Yeah.
time.
Because the reason for engagement is to not see that it's bad.
Mhm.